Welcome to the Schuby Show, where sports, movies, TV shows, technology, history, and more come to life. Now, please be seated and get ready for some more never-ending nonsense with yours truly, Schuby.
This is the Schuby Show with yours truly, Carson Schubert. And today on the show, we've got another guest lined up for you. The only episode we have next week. Next week we will have probably 2 episodes. I think that's kind of what the schedule I'm going to be going on is. Every other week I will have 2 episodes, and then the next week I will go with only 1 episode, and that's what we're going to do this week. So if it ends up being a little bit longer, then you won't have to listen to another episode this week. So Isaac Schade has been a guest on the You Don't Know Jack show, and he is kind enough to join us again. You can follow him on Twitter at Isaac Schade. And Isaac is a UNC writer for the Armchair All-Americans, and you're pretty happy right now, Isaac, for a UNC writer. First of all, how you doing?
Man, I am on cloud 9.
All right. That's good to hear. So you're. Let me guess that championship might have had something to do with that.
Yeah, just a tiny bit. It sure did. Yeah.
All right, so Isaac is going to talk to us here today about the game a little bit, as I am far from a college basketball expert and even farther away from a North Carolina basketball expert. So, Isaac, again, thanks for joining us. So your team won 71-65 over Gonzaga. Thank goodness that happened, because Gonzaga was my team that I did not think was going to be very good in the tournament. I thought they were going to be a bust or a pretender, whatever you want to say. I didn't think they were going to go far. And they proved me wrong by going all the way to the championship. Just to spite me, they had to go all the way to the championship.
Yeah, they had the number 1 defense in the country this year, and they didn't shoot incredibly well throughout the tournament, but boy, that defense got them where they needed to go.
Yeah. So obviously, you're still savoring the moment, as I can tell. But give us your thoughts on the game and why you think it went so well.
Sure. Well, for those who aren't college basketball fans, or who maybe don't remember or haven't, I don't know, peeked their head out of a hole for the past year, this is incredibly sweet because of the circumstances of last year's championship game. North Carolina had made it to the championship game, had an incredible year, and lost to Villanova on a buzzer beater at the end of the national championship game. And so to come back this year, in a year when North Carolina's arch rival Duke was predicted to run away with everything, and then to come through and actually win the national championship was very sweet. And, there were some moments throughout the tournament when it seemed like it wouldn't happen. They had to go on several runs. They were down to Arkansas in the second round. They were down to Kentucky, and they were right on the verge with Oregon. They were up by a point with 5 seconds left, and knowing what happened last year on the buzzer beater with fewer seconds than that was still very much in question. Yeah. And so, they're sitting there shooting free throws with 5 seconds left, and I was like, oh, man, I know what can happen in this short of time. But thankfully, Carolina got back-to-back offensive rebounds to seal that victory, and then went on to the championship game. And this year was especially sweet because the other 2 national championships in the Roy Williams era, 2005 and 2009, Carolina was kind of expected to win. Those years were at the top a lot of those seasons. But this year, they were literally never ranked number 1 and still pulled it out. So very, very special year indeed, and just really relished it.
Yeah, it was quite interesting to watch the game a little bit. And you were one of those people that kind of predicted this thing that Duke, they would not get out of the first or second round. You kind of thought they would be taken down pretty quickly, and maybe that was just part of your North Carolina fandom there.
It might be, but I actually felt legitimately backed up in it. One of the things in the NCAA tournament is you have to have strong guard play to win. And while Duke does have some athletes in the backcourt and Luke Kennard and some other folks, they just don't have a true point guard. And so it just seemed kind of destined to happen with the up and down year they had. So, yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I thought, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, but one thing I thought Duke did not have this year is they did not have much physicality. Like you had guys like Tatum and you had guys like that can play like in the post, but it just seemed like they did not have the ability, like especially against South Carolina when they played them. They didn't have the ability to go toe-to-toe with them because it seemed like Duke was too much finesse and South Carolina really took it to them.
Yep, I would agree with that. They had Emil Jefferson did have some of that toughness, but outside of him, just not much of that. I think you're right.
Yeah, like especially the guards. Like you didn't see, like you had the guard from South Carolina, Thornwell. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
He seemed like he's one of those guys that can get to the rim and finish. And he's kind of got that physicality to be down there. And when you look at Grayson Allen and you look at Luke Kennard, those guys are more of the jump shooter. Like they kind of shy away from the contact type of thing. Where Thornwell, I think, he kind of welcomes it almost. It seems like.
Yeah. Yep. And Allen legitimately has made a name for himself as being hard nosed and drives to the hoop a lot. But I think everything that he got into earlier in this year really kind of just threw him off kilter a lot this season. And so I don't think we saw the true Grayson Allen, the basketball player that we all thought we would see this year, the guy that was, expected preseason to be the player of the national player of the year. We just never really saw that, unfortunately.
Do you think he's going to go in the top 10 now, or do you think he's dropped himself out of that?
I don't think he'll go in the top 10, no. And in fact, he actually hasn't declared for the draft yet.
Oh, is he still a junior?
He is. And so he's got another year of eligibility if he wants to use it. Both, Kennard has declared and Jason Tatum has declared. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of up in the air. But even if he does come out, like you're saying, I think his stock has certainly dropped some. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, maybe he will come back and try and raise that stock once again. So back to UNC and Gonzaga National Championship.
Yes.
Thoughts on the game? Maybe talk about a few things that you put in some of your articles. I know you kind of write some quick hitters, I think is what you call them, after games.
Yep.
So just talk about the game and what your thoughts were on that.
Sure thing. Yeah, let's get into it. So just picture this. North Carolina won the national championship game shooting 35.6% on field goals, 14.8% on three-pointers, and 57.7% on free throws.
Oh, my God.
And won the national championship. In fact, if you combine the two Final Four games, so Oregon and Gonzaga, North Carolina shot 36.2% in those two games and won both of them in a national championship. So that's just tough to wrap your mind around. If you had told me going into the national championship game, hey, Justin Jackson, the best player on your team, your best NBA prospect, is going to shoot 0 for 9 from 3 and North Carolina is going to win, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
That just, it doesn't happen. But
you're crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what we see a lot of times in national championship games is it's numbers that often aren't typical of the season that kind of sway things. So here's some interesting numbers for you that happened that night. North Carolina had a season low 4 turnovers, the fewest turnovers they had all season. This was the only game all season where Gonzaga was outshot on field goal percentage. So as low as North Carolina's field goal percentage was, Gonzaga's was lower at 33.9%. North Carolina, you might know, made a living on rebounds this year. They were the number one offensive rebounding team in the country, had the highest offensive rebounding margin in the country. But this was the only game all season where they were out-rebounded and still won. There were a couple other games they were out-rebounded, but they lost those. So this is the only time that happened. So just some crazy stats like that that just turn the tide in a game like this. And so a couple things North Carolina did throughout the tournament. I mentioned it a little bit ago, but they were down at halftime and had an 8-0 run to start the second half and an 8-0 run to end the game. And it's just those kind of spurts that really turned the tide. And that this wasn't the only game in the tournament when they did that. You know, there was in the Arkansas game in the second round, they had a 12-0 run to end the game. Against Kentucky, it didn't end the game, but it was in the last couple minutes they had a 12-0 run to put that game away. And so the Tar Heels just had a habit of these kind of end-of-game runs that allowed them to win even when they weren't at their best. So, yeah, very, very interesting stuff from that night.
Yeah. What did you think about some of the things that Gonzaga was trying to do offensively? Because one thing, and actually now I remember kind of what I was going to say. I kind of stumbled into that question.
You're good.
I kind of thought that the game was won after those rebounds at the end. The rebounds at the end I thought were huge, just because obviously they were trying to make free throws and didn't make them, but then North Carolina got 2 huge rebounds, and it's like, oh man, you had a chance to win it, and then North Carolina just doesn't even let you get the rebound. So
exactly, yeah.
So that's the, even though they were out rebounded for the game, that was huge at the end there. And yeah, you can expand into Gonzaga. What did you think they maybe didn't do a good enough job of either side of the ball?
Sure. Well, a lot of it was their big guy inside, their mountain, Karnowski, just didn't play well that night. Some of that was him. Some of that was Kennedy Meeks, who is North Carolina's center, did a phenomenal job on him defensively. You know, Kennedy Meeks, who the game before had been the offensive star, 25 points, 14 rebounds, came in and just made this decision that, hey, everybody knows that this big 7-footer is the guy. And so he just stayed in front of him, moved his feet well, and kept Karnowski from scoring. And so that caused Gonzaga to have to rely on some of their other big guys like Zach Collins, the freshman, who, as many know, got in some foul trouble and fouled out. And so a lot of it is attributed to North Carolina's defense. A lot of it is, honestly, both teams were just missing shots. And so Gonzaga didn't shoot as well as they often do. And then down the stretch, we saw them having to rely on their All-American Nigel Williams-Goss, who had a really good game, but then in the closing minutes, unfortunately rolled his ankle and then just didn't have the same burst that he had the rest of the game. Yeah.
So let's move on here a little bit. Great officiating, huh?
Yes, it was fantastic. No, I'd tell you it's tough, Carson, because a lot. Watching the game, a lot of these fouls that were called were legit. They were legitimately fouls that could have been called. Yeah. But it's a scenario where it really felt like the way the officials called the game in the first half, that they changed things in the second half and really stopped the flow of the game. You know, it was just even as a fan of one of the teams playing, it just didn't have good flow, not good rhythm, and so it was hard for either team. I think that honestly probably had a lot to do with the poor shooting, is that neither team could really get into an offensive rhythm within the game. And so unfortunately, because of all those foul calls, it really caused the game to not always allow the best players to be on the floor, because a lot of in particular the postmen were in trouble, in foul trouble. So I think some of that can be attributed to the fact that, you know, in this day and age, we have such an outside in game, both in the NBA and college, where, you know, you might have one traditional guy inside, but then 4 shooters like your guards and maybe a stretch 4 outside. But both Gonzaga and North Carolina play with 2 big guys inside and then your backcourt. And so I wouldn't even be surprised if the officials, who just aren't used to officiating all that post play the entire game with all the different bodies, we're just calling it differently than they otherwise might have.
Yeah, I think that one of the things with the officiating is it just got overplayed by everybody. Like once somebody says officiating's bad, then somebody else sees the next call and they're like, "Oh yeah, that was a terrible call," and then it just outpours to everybody else. Yep, it was bad officiating. Yep, it was bad officiating. And I think that was kind of one of those things. And I also think I agree with your point where you said it kind of affected the flow of the game there, and that maybe that is what threw Gonzaga off in the end. I don't know.
Yeah, it very well could be. And it's funny. A lot of people pointed to there was the play near the end of the game where there was Kennedy Meeks looked like he had an offensive rebound, and it came down, and they eventually got a jump ball, a tie up. But on replay, it looked like Kennedy Meeks' hand was out of bounds. And so a lot of people were in uproar about that call. And because then North Carolina scored, got a layup on the next play. But interestingly, nobody talks about a couple minutes earlier, there was a play where Gonzaga took a three, and they said it was tipped by a North Carolina player. And so the ball went out of bounds and was awarded to Gonzaga. But on the replay, it was obvious that Theo Pinson, the North Carolina player, hadn't touched the ball. And then Gonzaga actually got a three-pointer out of that. So, it's just one of those where it's going to happen both ways, and they're human just like all of us. But it's in a national championship game, some of those bad calls stick out, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think there's ways they can start fixing that better instead of having the officials go over to the teleprompter or the computer screen, basically. You could just have guys in like they do with Major League Baseball. They've got three guys that sit down at a monitor and they decide whether or not the guy is safe or not. I don't know why you can't do that with these other sports. Just tell the officials the call, and then they will say the call, and then that's it.
100% agree.
And they can be looking at it before they even say time out to look at the play, because they'll have that monitor in front of them. And I think it'd just be a lot easier if they did it for all sports, honestly. I mean, in the NFL too, it's like, oh, let's go under the hood and go all the way across the field from where the play is and try and figure this out. It's no, just have that little earphone or earbud, whatever, in your ear, and then have the guys that are reviewing the play tell you what the call is, and then say it, and then the game can continue. That is going to take off a lot of the time from replays, I think, if they would ever do something like that in these other sports.
I completely agree with you, and there's no reason the head official in the game should be having to take his mind off the game to make this replay decision. Let somebody else do it so the officials on the field or on the court can keep their minds in the game at hand. No reason for that. I 100% agree with you.
Absolutely. All right, so what was your favorite and least favorite moment from the game itself?
Sure. My favorite moment was actually a play. North Carolina was up by 1 point with about just under 30 seconds to go. And Isaiah Hicks, who's the starting four for the Tar Heels, had really struggled against Oregon in the semifinal. He had shot 1 for 12. He had just missed a bunch of bunnies, a bunch of layups, and then struggled in the first half of this game, but then had a really strong second half. And he's a senior, so this is his last game no matter what. And then at the last seconds of the game, Carolina's up 1. You miss a shot, and then that would mean Gonzaga has the last shot. And Justin Jackson, the ACC Player of the Year, Joel Berry, the guy who ends up being the Final Four most outstanding player, it's not them that winds up with the ball. It's Isaiah Hicks. He makes a play, he trusts it, and puts it in from about 5 feet out. And so to see all that he had struggled with over the course of that weekend, and then be the one to hit this shot that really in a lot of ways iced the game was just very poetic to end things.
Yes, I remember that shot, and the announcer, I think Jim Nance, he was kind of saying that that was kind of fitting for him to be able to get that opportunity towards the end there.
Absolutely.
And do you have a least favorite moment?
Yes, I actually have two. And we kind of mentioned this already, but I really hate that the fouls played such a big factor in the game. You really want to see both teams competing at the highest level with every one of their guys on the floor. Mm-hmm. And I'll say that part of North Carolina's game plan is they usually have a lot of depth at the post position, and so work hard to foul the other guys out. But in this game, it was just higher than usual. There's just so many fouls, and it really disrupted the game. And then the other thing, I also mentioned this already, but was Gonzaga's Williams Goss injuring his ankle right at the end of the game. It came on a play where Carolina was up 1, and he had a shot to put Gonzaga back up 1, but just couldn't get lift on his jump shot because he just rolled his ankle. And so you hate to see it end that way for him, just with him being injured and not being able to play to his full potential.
Yeah, that's tough, especially since the season was getting closer to the end and that kind of thing. Obviously, I would say your favorite moment of the season was winning the tournament, but what was one of your least favorite moments of the season for the Tar Heels? Yeah,
for the Tar Heels, I really hated to see they had, and I know this is true of many teams throughout the country, but they just were really unfortunate on the injury front a lot throughout the year. It seemed like every time they were going to get one of their players back, Theo Pinson started the year on the disabled list, as it were. And then, like, right as he's getting ready to come back, somebody else would get injured, and Joel Berry had several injuries. And so it was just a lot of patchwork stuff. And so it was tough to see throughout the season that going on. And so hated that. And I know other teams struggled with that, but it was tough. But not my least favorite thing of the college basketball season as a whole, not even necessarily with North Carolina, was to see the way that Kentucky fans treated the officials after the Kentucky-North Carolina game. There was just some tough calls, and some of those went against Kentucky, but it's fine to disagree with the call an official makes. But to jeopardize a man's life and his livelihood is completely out of line, completely inappropriate. And so that to me just it left a sour taste in my mouth towards the end of the year. I mean, these are kids out playing a game. These referees, it's not even their full-time job. Like, they're doing the absolute best they can. They have incredible training. It's a game, you know. Come on.
It's the same thing where Blair Walsh, as you probably well know, missed the field goal last year.
Yes.
And he was receiving death threats and all that. And it's like, yes, it was obviously a makeable and he should have made the kick type of situation, but you don't want to send guys life-threatening emails or letters or whatever you send them, because it's a game, like you said. I mean, yeah, the Vikings are maybe cursed from winning a Super Bowl, but it's just a game in the end, you know. There's way more important things to life than a game, and if you don't think so, then you need to reevaluate your life.
Yes, exactly.
So, moving on to the NBA now, Isaac. That's what we'll close the show with, since the playoffs are right around the corner. I believe they start Saturday or Sunday this weekend, I think. I'm not positive on that. Or is it next weekend? Maybe. I'll have to look at that. But, Isaac, what are your thoughts here on the final few days of the regular season? Some teams that you've been keeping an eye on. There's some spots to be had yet here in the Western Conference and Eastern Conference.
Yes. Today we're talking on Wednesday, and today is the last day of the regular season. And so just a couple things for me. One, in the East, it's crazy to see how the Cavs have stumbled down the stretch here. Losing 3 in a row. They lost twice to the Hawks over the weekend, once in one of the more incredible comebacks ever. The Hawks were down 26 going into the fourth quarter and came back and won quite improbably in overtime on Sunday. And then the Heat beat the Cavaliers in overtime right after that. So the defending champs, with their starters in the game, really struggling down the stretch and are going to lose the number 1 seed because of it. So that's really interesting. And then the other thing in the East, as we look at the end of the regular season here, is there are 2 playoff spots and 3 teams vying for them, the 7th and the 8th. The teams in contention for that are the Pacers, the Bulls, and the Heat, and they each play tonight. The Bulls are playing the Nets, who are the worst team in the East and are, in fact, sitting several players. So you would imagine the Bulls should have an easy go of it. The Pacers play the Hawks, and the Heat play the Wizards, and they're both already locked into their playoff spots, the Hawks and the Wizards. So you would imagine that the Pacers and Heat should be okay. So my thought is that tonight all 3 of these teams are going to win. And unfortunately, with that happening, if they do all 3 win, that'll leave the Heat out in the cold. And so that's just kind of the storylines I'm looking at here down the stretch.
Yeah. The West is set. It'll be Golden State and Portland facing off in the first round, and San Antonio and Memphis, Oklahoma City and Houston. That will probably be the best series to watch of the Western Conference. And the Clippers and the Jazz, I think that could be also quite interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting series. I'm excited to watch some of that.
But do you think Portland's got a shot to even win a couple of games against Golden State with their backcourt?
I think they absolutely could. I mean, with Lillard, he's just a beast. And so he could go off. Yeah, so absolutely they could take a couple games from the Warriors. I think the Warriors ultimately certainly win that series, but I would not be surprised at all to see the Blazers take a game or 2. And to answer your question, you're looking at the first round of the playoffs do begin on Saturday, the 15th.
Saturday, okay. I was right at the first time.
Yeah, there you go.
So that and you said all 3 of these teams win tonight. That leaves Miami out in the cold.
That's correct.
Yep. So let's say there is a way that Indiana could be out of this yet, though. So because it says they have not clinched yet.
No.
So if they lose and Chicago and Miami both win, Indiana's out. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so. And Indiana's playing the Hawks at home tonight. They'll be in Indy, which is on ESPN. In fact, it's just about to start right now.
Okay. So there is a chance that Indiana could be out, but I think the way the Hawks sometimes – I don't know. I think the Hawks are kind of one of those teams that are always questionable. But maybe they will.
And the Hawks are already locked into their seed, and so they've already said they're going to rest several guys tonight. And so, with the Pacers needing the win to do it, they should be able to hold serve at home here tonight.
And Chicago, they are playing tonight also. And who are they playing?
The Bulls are playing the Nets, and so the Nets are laughably terrible, and have also said that they're going to rest some guys tonight. So
why?
I don't know. And that game is in Chicago, so you got to imagine that the Bulls will be able to pull that out.
Well, maybe the Bulls have a bad shooting night, like really bad shooting night, and the Nets just surprise everybody. But, it does not look like Miami's going to get in. And quickly, I know we didn't put it in the show notes, but of the teams in each conference, give me 1 or 2 teams from each conference that you're surprised could or will miss the playoffs.
Will miss the playoffs. Honestly, the Heat missing the playoffs is quite surprising. I know, it hasn't been the same team since LeBron went back to Cleveland, but, it's just interesting to see how they've fallen. I guess I would also say the Hornets. I thought they were going to have a better year this year as well. The Pelicans are going to miss the playoffs. That really surprises me with having Anthony Davis and adding Boogie Cousins to the mix, and then they're not even going to make the playoffs. So that's the team in the West I'm kind of surprised about.
And get this, Sacramento only finished 1 game back of New Orleans.
Exactly. So
the first half season, that trade has not worked out so far.
For either team, no.
You never know. I mean, that they do not have much around either one of those players. I just was not a big fan of the idea of New Orleans getting him, just because I just don't know if that's a good front court there together. I don't know if they mesh well enough to at all times to be able to work well together. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. You know, I'm sure an off season spent together, they'll be able to do some figuring out. But it'll be interesting come next year.
Yeah. Definitely they'll have to probably look at getting a point guard. You know, it'd be interesting, Isaac. What if they got CP3 to go over there?
Oh, that would be very interesting. Man, yeah, CP3. I'm curious because it really feels like all those guys in LA, all those Clippers, really want to. It just has felt like there would be a year where they'd get over the hump, but just injuries, I feel like, keep biting them. And I know they're getting back healthy now just in time for the playoffs. But, if they could lure him to New Orleans, that could be very interesting. Yeah,
because I think his contract is up here in the offseason, I think. I don't know that for a fact, but I think his contract is up. Steph Curry's contract is up. Kevin Durant has an option. There's going to be quite a few free agents because I think even Blake Griffin, I think his contract is up. Mm-hmm. Paul Millsap, he's expiring, and so there are going to be quite a few free agents, and it's going to be interesting to see where they all land, I think.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting offseason for sure.
But looking forward here to the awards part of things before we're running out of time. We got about 10 minutes left here.
Sure.
Who's your MVP?
Well, I'll tell you, it's Westbrook for me. I really think one of these years soon it'll be Kawhi Leonard. Looking at his numbers, I was just looking at this the other day. He's been in the league since 2011-12, and his scoring average has gone up literally every year. He's been in the league, and I just think there's some year where it's just too much and he rises over the top. For me, when I look at the MVP, it's the word valuable that most sticks out to me. So I look at this award less as the best player in the NBA. If it were that, I would pick LeBron year after year after year after year. I mean, it's just, to me, LeBron is hands down the best player. But when we look at this year, the Thunder losing Durant and still going to make the playoffs, finishing sixth.
Which I did not see happening.
Right, exactly. I thought there's no way they're done. They won't make the playoffs. And so if you're telling me most valuable player is the most indispensable player on a team, it's got to be Russell Westbrook for me.
Yeah, as maybe you well know, I am not a Westbrook fan.
Correct. Yes, I do know that.
I think he is very selfish. I think he is a ball hog. I think that he doesn't use his team the way he should. And I think that's why you have nights where he shot 6 for 25 against the Suns, and the rest of his team was shooting 40, or there was 4 players shooting 40% or better. That's clearly better than 23%. I mean, 40% isn't great, but it's still better than 23%. So
yes,
I don't know why he wouldn't try and get those guys involved. I mean, he had 8 assists, but I mean, with him putting up those triple-double numbers, why wouldn't he try and get more assists from those guys?
Right.
Those guys should have taken more shots. I just don't know. I mean, obviously, you can't deny how much talent he has. He's got a lot of talent. He's an amazing athlete. I just don't think he's got it all mentally. I don't know. I mean, you know, he's also very, very good at turning the ball over, and that comes with obviously handling the ball. But I think a lot of his turnovers are not very smart turnovers.
Yep.
And I also would say there's another article that I read that said that a lot of his shooting goes below 40% when they are playing teams that are 500 or above, and that's not even necessarily a team like Golden State. That's like teams that are just barely decent.
Yeah.
And I just think he's overrated. I do. And there's more stats that I can share with my audience if they want to keep questioning me on that. And I will continue to look up things. And but I'm going to tell you right here, I'm predicting that the Thunder will not win more than 2 games against the Rockets.
No, I agree with you. I don't think they will either. the Rockets are certainly a more complete team, and the Thunder are young, and I think they'll build hopefully around Westbrook. But yeah, I agree with you. The Rockets should take that series.
And for MVP, I will take James Harden. So,
okay. Love it.
And
that's one of those, you cannot fault either of those options in my book.
Yeah.
I think they're both great and worthy candidates.
And, honestly, you can't really fault Kawhi Leonard either. You can't fault LeBron, obviously. You can't fault him.
Yep.
But, yeah, it's just – and, you can't put anybody from Golden State on there. There should just be no way that there should be anybody. I mean, Kevin Durant's obviously had a good season when he's been healthy, but they just have so much talent. You can't give somebody the MVP from there.
Exactly, yeah.
So let's take a look at Coach of the Year. Who do you like as Coach of the Year in the NBA?
Yeah. I'm really tempted to say Brad Stevens. I love what the Celtics. I mean, who would have? I know the Celtics are picked to finish near the top of the East, but man, beating the Cavs for the number 1 seed. I mean, that's incredible. So, but I'm going to go with Mike D'Antoni. I know we were just talking about the Rockets. ESPN picked them to finish 8th in the West preseason. Bleacher Report picked them to finish 11th preseason. But what he did is took James Harden and said, I'll tell you what, one of the best players in the NBA, we're going to switch your position and you're going to be our point guard. And here they are. They finished 3rd in the West of all, And so I know Mike D'Antoni's been much maligned throughout his career. And so what a great job he's done there in Houston.
Yeah, so it turns out that all Mike D'Antoni needed was to have James Harden play point guard in Los Angeles, and the Lakers would have been great.
Exactly.
All right, so my Coach of the Year, I'm going to say is Doc Rivers, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
I think that Doc Rivers has put up with a lot of drama this year, and I think he's put up with a lot of different injuries between Chris Paul, and I think Blake Griffin's had injuries at times.
Yeah.
And they still managed to be in the top half of the Western Conference, and I think that was pretty impressive myself. For him to carry his team there, and even with all those injuries and everything, Clippers are still in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to do much in the playoffs, but I think it was impressive to see them finish in the top half of the Western Conference with all those injuries and drama-related situations. So
agreed. Yep.
And obviously, Doc Rivers probably isn't going to get it because it's kind of like him and Popovich almost are always like right there for it, and they never get it because they're always right there. It's kind of like the LeBron thing. He's always there, but you're never going to give it to him because he's
exactly. Unfortunately, yep.
So Isaac, you have a playoff format that you think should be implemented into the NBA. What? Give us some details on that.
Yeah, so I just struggle with the NBA postseason. It's so long. If your team makes it to the finals and you play every game possible, that's another 28 games, almost. That's like more than a third of the regular season, and it just stretches on. It's too much for us as the viewers. It's too much on these players' bodies, and I get it. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about, hey, how can we squeeze every penny out of this? But I would love to see it move in a direction of something more like the baseball postseason, where perhaps we keep the conference finals and the NBA finals as a best of 7, but then we look at changing the first round to either best of 3 or best of 5, and then changing the second round to best of 5. It just shortens it a little bit, but still keeps it as a series instead of just one-offs. It just seems like it would help the postseason get finished sooner.
Yes.
So anyway, I just really, it's just too much the way it is right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One thing I always do when I play 2K is I will always, when I create a franchise or a league or whatever they call it, I will make it so that the first round is always 5 games, and then I just have the rest as 7. But yeah, I could definitely see having both the first and second round, both 5 games. I don't know if I'd go down to 3 for the first round because it's pretty easy, I think, for a Golden State or something to go in and win two in a row. Honestly,
sure.
or
Sure.
something
Yeah,
like
certainly the longer the series is going to benefit the better team. And so that's why, I wouldn't want to make it one off. That's the beauty of the NBA tournament, and I don't want to steal that from them. And
Right.
I think the NBA needs to have their best team for TV and everything else. They need to have their best teams playing. So one off is too short.
One thing I would think, and I think that's too short for baseball even.
Yes, the wild card game. Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I would think you could maybe do too is I think it's ridiculous that they have to take a game off in between when they're at the same arena. I think
yes.
That is just ridiculous to me. I would say, why don't you just take those 2 off days to travel, and that should be good enough, I would think.
Yep. If they're going to make them play these back-to-back nights during the regular season, why? Let's do it staying in the same city during the postseason.
Exactly, and then also that even drags it out even more. That drags it out way more. I mean, take 2 days off for traveling. I understand that. Get a little rest. Use a day to travel and that kind of thing. But after you're on the road and you've played a game, then you got a game, and you got to wait until the day after. That, to me, as a player, that would be kind of a pain too, because it's like, oh, we're here. Why don't we just play the game now?
Yes, exactly.
But that's just my opinion on that. So maybe they'll change that eventually, because there's no reason that the NBA playoffs should go. What is it? Over a month? It's like almost 2 months, isn't it?
Yeah, it's typically into June before it's done.
That's just ridiculous. That's got to be done by May 31st, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are some storylines you're looking forward to? We'll go a little bit overtime here today since we only have one episode. But what are some storylines for you going into the playoffs here?
Yeah, well, a couple. The first one that I'm looking at is, we were talking about. You said you think James Harden's the MVP. I've got Russell Westbrook. They're playing each other in the first round. And with Harden being the point guard this year, that means we're going to see them on one another a lot. And so, man, I think that will be a fun first round series and probably the most entertaining. The other thing is, there's always in the playoffs some fun storylines of former teammates facing off. And so one example of that is if the Celtics are able to win their first round series and the Hawks are somehow able to beat Washington, then Al Horford would go back up against the team he had played his entire career with until this year. And so, that's just fun. That's good drama for the game. Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting, too, to see how Milwaukee goes against Toronto, if they're able to win a game, maybe. Because I think they've got an interesting team, but when Toronto is firing on all cylinders, which sometimes they aren't in the playoffs. We've seen them choke in the playoffs before.
But with Giannis, he's so good.
Yeah.
He's just so good.
So, I mean, is there a chance you think Milwaukee could maybe get an upset in the first round?
I would think so, except for this. Kyle Lowry is back and healthy again. And I think their backcourt is just too dynamic. And in fact, we'll see as we talk here. I've got some big thoughts for Toronto this offseason or this postseason. So. Oh
wow! All right. So coming up, Isaac has some thoughts here. That would be an interesting series. And as I said, I think the Clippers and the Jazz, that will be definitely interesting in the Western Conference. And obviously, Oklahoma City and Houston figures to be the best first round matchup of all of them. Yeah. So what dark horse do you have from each conference? What's a team that you think has a legitimate shot to maybe not even get to just the finals, but maybe just for the conference finals per se?
Sure. Yep. Well, for the East, we'll start there. It's the Hawks actually. As you look at the Hawks, they are 5-2 this year against the Cavs and the Celtics. And so if Atlanta is able to get by Washington, who they've not played well against this year, they have the personnel to match up with both Boston and Cleveland. And so if they can get to the second round or, just past Washington, there are some possibilities there for the Hawks. And so then they've proven it during the regular season. So that'll be curious to see. And then looking at the West, you were just talking about the Jazz and Clippers series. So my dark horse in the West is actually whoever wins that series. I know the Clippers haven't been healthy all year together, but if they, it's guys that have played together for years. And so if they can put it together here, I think they've got a great shot against the Warriors in the second round. The Jazz are the best defensive team in the NBA in terms of points per game allowed. Only they and the Spurs are allowing fewer than 100 points a game. The Spurs are at 98, and the Jazz are at 96. And so when you play good defense, that can keep you in any game. And so if the Jazz can beat the Clippers, I think they have a shot. They're in the West.
Yeah, I would say they've got a shot at the Warriors, definitely. I just don't think that the Clippers do, honestly. I think that Golden State will handle the Clippers if it comes to that. I just think the Clippers, they play them tough, but I feel like this year Golden State would just take them down because I feel like I don't know. I think the Clippers need to rebuild. Like I said, I think Doc Rivers could be the coach of the year because just of everything he's put up with this year, the drama. Are we trading this guy? Are we trading that guy? This guy's hurt. When is he coming back? And just the LA media obviously is a lot to put up with, and the fact that he's fourth in the Western Conference, I think, is a miracle, honestly, with all the things that he's gone through this season. So give props to Doc Rivers on that, but I think there's going to be a major rebuild for the Clippers this offseason.
Interesting, yeah.
One dark horse, I would agree with your dark horse on the Jazz. I think they're always interesting, but I just think they're going to lack that playmaker.
Yep.
That in the end that would put them over the top. So I'm going to say actually my dark horse is Portland. They've kind of been a hot team towards the end of the season here. I don't know how many games they've won in a row or anything. I guess I could probably look that up, but it seems like they've had some big wins to kind of put themselves in position. They're actually 8-2 in their last 10, and they've won 3 in a row. So that sounds like a team that's hot to me. And if they continue that, if they can somehow knock off Golden State, I think they've got a really really good shot in the Western Conference. But it's going to be up to Lillard and, of course, McCollum to lead them because that's the bread and butter of their offense.
Absolutely.
But I thought that acquisition that they got from the Nuggets of I think it was Nurkic was it Nurkic or was it the other guy? I always get them confused. The Nurkic or you know what I'm talking about?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, well, they both basically were both centers. It was Nurkic, I believe, that plays for Portland, and then I can't remember his other name. But anyways, I think he could be an impact player for them. Down in
Nurkic is at Portland. You're right.
Yeah. Yep. And I can't remember the one that the Nuggets have now anymore, but he's pretty good too. But, I just think Portland's got a chance. And then in the East, I would say Washington is my dark horse, and maybe Indiana, but it seems like they're missing another player outside of Paul George. But I think Washington's got a chance. Again, another dangerous backcourt with obviously John Wall, and, of course, they've got Otto Porter over there yet. And they've got, what's his name, the shooting guard there, he's pretty
Bradley
good.
Beal.
Bradley Beal, yeah.
Yeah.
Beal's a big deal, you know. So I think Otto Porter's still there, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And then in the backcourt, Brandon Jennings is always electric, and so there's some possibilities there.
So they could make some noise in that Eastern Conference. I think they could maybe even make a run potentially, I don't want to put this in stone, but potentially at the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't want to put that in stone, but there is a chance, I think, for the Wizards.
Yeah.
So that is my dark horses. Just quickly here, Isaac, finishing out the show.
Sure.
Do you think the Warriors and Cavs it'll be a three-peat of those two in the finals?
I would love to see a rubber match between the Warriors and the Cavs, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think the two teams seem a little bit more vulnerable this year.
All right. Do you have a bold prediction for the playoffs, not necessarily for the finals?
Yes. My bold prediction, sticking with the Cavs and the Warriors, is that not both, but one of these teams, I'm not going to pick which, but either the Cavs or the Warriors are going to lose before the conference finals.
All right. Wow. So I honestly, I could see that happening. One of those two teams are going to lose. I think, honestly, I think this era is going to come to an end. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it kept going.
No, absolutely, I wouldn't either.
But I just have that slight feeling that something's going to happen in this playoffs. That whether it's an injury or whether it's just one big play from another team, whether it's one of those things, I just feel it's got that feeling. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. And
so go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, I know the Cavs have the ability to seemingly turn it on at a moment's notice, but they just have not been playing well. They've not been playing good defense. And so they're going to have to find a way to rise to the occasion if they want to repeat or even make it back to the finals, to be honest.
Yeah. So in the end, who do you like it to win it all?
Well, if I can be a little bit even more bold, I'm going to suggest that neither the Cavs nor the Warriors make the finals.
Oh,
and so I'm going to suggest that we are going to have the Raptors make the finals from the East, and that we're going to see the Spurs come out of the West. I just have this feeling. I was talking about Kawhi earlier, and I think he's going to take over on both sides of the ball. And at the end of the day, we're going to see the Spurs win the NBA championship in their first year in the post-Tim Duncan era.
Oh, wow. All right. That would be quite something. I'm not necessarily a big fan of the Spurs, but that'd be interesting. I'm going to make a bold prediction to you.
Bring it. Let's have it.
I'm going to say the Warriors get back to the finals.
Okay.
Barely. I think they're going to end up going 6 or 7 games with somebody in the Western Conference Finals. I don't know who. But I think they're going to meet up with another team, and I think it's going to be the number 1 seed from the East, the Boston Celtics.
The Celtics. Okay.
The Celtics are going to make it there. I don't know if Isaiah Thomas is going to be able to play well enough defensively against the Cavs.
Yeah.
But I think the Celtics get there, and I think the Celtics shock the nation and win it all.
Okay.
Win it all, and then Boston's got not only the Patriots, but they got the Celtics that win a championship. So that's my prediction. That I literally just came up with that. So if it's wrong, it won't surprise me.
No, I like it, and I honestly I wouldn't be surprised at all either. The Celtics are playing really well.
Yeah, and you never know. Maybe Golden State even gets knocked out of the first round. Like I said, Portland has been hot. If they continue that, and Golden State maybe struggles again, if Steph all of a sudden goes back to where he was a few weeks ago, that could smell trouble for the Warriors. So
it could.
It'll be an interesting playoffs, and we've already gone well over time, but that's okay. Like we said, it's only one episode this week, so hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Again, Isaac, thank you for joining the Schuby Show, my new show, and definitely we'll have to get you back on sometime.
Yeah, thanks so much, Carson, for having me. Really enjoyed talking to you.
You bet. And you can follow Isaac at Isaac Schade on Twitter. That's SCHADE. Any other closing comments from you there, Isaac, before I let you go?
No, it's been a great college basketball season. I'm sad it's over, but love the off season. Looking forward to the NBA playoffs, the NBA draft, and seeing there's still a lot of recruits for college basketball next year who have not declared. And so just want to say, hey, everybody, keep your eyes out, and it's going to be a fun off season.
All right, and don't forget to catch Isaac's work on the Armchair All-Americans, armchairallamericans.com, and find the UNC basketball homepage, and you'll be able to catch Isaac's work there and catch up with all the North Carolina moves in the offseason, whether a player comes. I think you got a whole bunch of seniors there at North Carolina, so I don't think anybody's really coming back, Isaac. Is that right?
Actually, Joel Berry, the most outstanding player of the Final Four, might be coming back.
Okay.
But and Theo Pinson, another one of the starters, but they do lose Kennedy Meeks and Isaiah Hicks, and Justin Jackson is a junior, but he's probably going to declare for the draft. So, yep.
So a good chance they'll lose at least 2, if not 3 of their starters, so that could be a tough loss. But, of course,
very much.
North Carolina is one of those schools that seems to find talent as freshmen. So, So it'll be interesting. Again, keep up with Isaac's work at armchairallamericans.com. And Isaac will also, I'm sure, be tweeting about the NBA playoffs as the playoffs come around as well. So keep up with him on Twitter at Isaac Schade. To get his bold takes down, make sure he's got those right or wrong, because I know everybody lets me know when my bold takes are wrong. So
there you go. Let me have it. I'm game.
I'm game for it too, because my prediction probably won't even be close. So, all right, Isaac. Well, again, thanks for joining the show, and have a good one, man.
Thanks. You too, brother.
Thanks. All right, that is going to do it for the Schuby Show today. Don't forget to find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Schuby Show. And you can follow me on Twitter at Radio Ruben. And don't forget, you can email the show if you want somebody to be on the show that is knowledgeable with sports, movies, TV shows, technology, history, and I'll have an announcement on that next week or here in a moment. Or just think that they'd be a good guest on the show, please contact us via email at theschubyshow@gmail.com or via our social media. And don't forget to visit our website, www.theschubyshow.webs.com. Real website, our own website coming soon. So that is going to do it for the show today. And next week, I will have my old, he's not old, but my former high school history teacher, Mr. Docker, will be joining me to talk about history. And maybe he'll talk a little bit about the Cubs as well, of course, coming off their World Series. Do they have another chance of repeating? Obviously, he's probably going to think yes. But we'll get some of his thoughts on history, as it was an exciting week in history. Just some dates. We had Jackie Robinson, his first season this past week started, and there's some other things that were made. First patent, I think, was used in the U.S. So we'll talk about history with him. If you like history, please join the show next week. We'll actually have something that isn't related to sports for the most part. Maybe at the end we will, but you know me, I just can't resist. So, again, if you didn't check out last week's episode with Rhett Bollinger, please do that. Twins beat writer. We had a great conversation with him. Again, want to thank Isaac Schade for joining me on the Schuby Show. And that will do it. We will see you next week with 2 episodes. Skol.
Thanks for listening to The Schuby Show. We hope you mildly enjoyed yourself with more never-ending nonsense with yours truly. For more nonsense, go to the website, theschubyshow.webs.com. Get the show on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Until next time, Skol.